Have you ever noticed how some people almost disappear on their birthday? No parties, no posts, no excitement, just a calm, quiet day. But that silence isn't emptiness. It's emotion disguised as stillness. Beneath the calm is a story, one about expectations, pain, peace, and control. For some, calling it just another day isn't rejection, it's protection. Because when you've learned that celebrations don't always bring happiness, you start finding peace in simplicity. You stop waiting for others to remember and start honoring yourself in silence. The calm isn't coldness, it's emotional intelligence forged by life's lessons. When someone says, "It's just another day," they sound casual, even unaffected. But psychologists call this emotional minimization, pretending you don't care to avoid being hurt. It's not that birthdays mean nothing. It's that expectations once brought disappointment. So, they wear calmness like armor. That indifference is their protection against the sting of being forgotten. Every shrug hides a quiet memory, a time they cared too much. Over years, they've learned to smile at silence, to laugh off neglect, and to find pride in not needing anyone. Their apathy isn't emptiness. It's self-defense wrapped in grace. It often begins young. A child sits waiting for friends who never show. The room gets quieter. The cake melts a little. Balloons drift lower. That's how disappointment teaches the mind to stop expecting joy. Psychologists call it learned helplessness, when repeated sadness trains you to protect yourself by not hoping at all. So, years later when someone says, "Birthdays don't matter," they're not cold, they're remembering. They've turned pain into calmness, because if you expect nothing, you can't be hurt. What began as heartbreak became armor. What once was sadness now looks like maturity. Over time, repeated neglect builds invisible walls. People learn to expect silence, and silence becomes comfort. This is how emotional resilience sometimes disguises itself as detachment. The phrase, "I don't care," is often code for, "I once cared too much." Birthdays, once bright, now fade into routine. This isn't pessimism. It's preservation. The person who no longer celebrates isn't bitter. They've simply discovered peace in not waiting. They've chosen to rewrite pain as neutrality, to stand strong behind walls made not of anger, but acceptance. The absence of celebration is, in truth, the presence of strength. Not everyone ignores their birthday out of pain. Some lose it to pace. Work, studies, endless deadlines. Life blurs days together. Psychologists call it time blindness, when your brain, overloaded by tasks, stops recognizing special days. They don't forget their birthday. They just don't have time to feel it. The mind trades celebration for survival. They promise, "I'll celebrate later." But later never comes. To the outside world, it looks like indifference. In truth, it's exhaustion. The candle isn't missing. It's waiting to be lit once life slows down. The tragedy is, it rarely does. Silence isn't always sadness. Sometimes it's routine. People who've stopped expecting often stop expressing. Every year becomes a quiet echo of the last. They might scroll through others' birthday posts and feel nothing. Not jealousy, not longing, just calm detachment. That's emotional conditioning. The mind adjusts to absence and begins to see peace in predictability. They're not numb, they're stable. They've trained their emotions not to react. And when you reach that level of calmness, the world can't shake you anymore. Birthdays no longer measure love. They measure how far you've come from needing it. For some, Birthdays aren't celebrations. They're checkpoints. A moment when the question whispers, "Am I where I should be?" These people measure progress instead of parties. Each year feels like a mirror reflecting achievements and regrets. If they feel behind, joy turns to pressure. Psychologists call this conditional self-worth, believing you only deserve celebration if you've earned it. So they withdraw, not because they hate attention, but because they feel undeserving. Their silence hides self-critique. It's not that they forgot their birthday. They just can't celebrate what they haven't forgiven themselves for. Some people don't skip birthdays out of sadness or busyness. They do it intentionally. They're rejecting a social script. To them, joy isn't about public validation but private meaning. They celebrate differently. Maybe a morning walk, a book, or sitting under the sky in silence. Psychologists call this autonomy satisfaction, the peace that comes from self-directed choices. These people aren't hiding. They're redefining what celebration means. For them, birthdays aren't about being seen. They're about feeling grounded. Their silence isn't rejection of love. It's rebellion against performance. Ironically, those who don't celebrate their own birthdays often remember everyone else's. They're the first to wish, to buy gifts, to send messages. Why? Because they know the sting of being forgotten. Their kindness isn't performative. It's reflective. It's empathy born from neglect. By celebrating others, they heal a younger version of themselves. They give what they never got. And when you thank them, they just smile quietly. Because deep down, they aren't doing it for attention. They're doing it to keep the world kinder than it once was to them. For some, the real celebration isn't visible. It happens quietly, in reflection, gratitude, and survival. They look back at everything they endured and whisper, "I'm still here." That's not sadness, that's power. They've stopped needing parties to feel alive because they already understand what the day truly means. Endurance. Every year survived is proof of strength. They may not post or party, but they celebrate in silence, with presence, gratitude, and grace. And that kind of peace? It's rare, mature, and deeply human. For some people, attention isn't joy, it's pressure. Being in the spotlight feels unnatural, even suffocating. Birthdays, with all their eyes and expectations, amplify that discomfort. These are often people who've learned to stay low-key, blending in to protect their peace. They prefer small, genuine gestures over loud applause. Psychologists link this to self-conscious sensitivity, when one's internal comfort outweighs social approval. So when they downplay their birthday, it's not rejection, it's protection. They're not avoiding love, they're filtering it, choosing sincerity over spectacle. That's not coldness, it's emotional intelligence in disguise. Sometimes, people stop celebrating not by choice, but by repetition. Forgotten birthdays leave quiet scars. After a few years of unnoticed days, the heart builds armor. It's just another day, they say, but deep down, it's self-preservation. When expectations repeatedly meet silence, the mind learns not to expect. Psychologists call this emotional learned helplessness, protecting yourself by numbing anticipation. So when someone shrugs off their birthday, remember, they once cared deeply. Their indifference isn't natural, it's practiced. Behind every calm, "it's fine," may lie years of unspoken hurt disguised as maturity. There comes a point when people outgrow the need for acknowledgement. They stop chasing likes, wishes, or gatherings, not because they're cold, but because they've found something deeper: self-value. This shift marks emotional maturity. The birthday becomes personal inventory. What did I learn this year? Not, who remembered me? They've replaced validation with gratitude. They've realized that joy doesn't need witnesses. And that realization, quiet, profound, freeing, transforms them from seekers of love into sources of it. It's no longer about who celebrates them, but who they've become. People who've grown through pain often outgrow noise. Birthdays remind them not of parties but of lessons, resilience, healing, becoming. Each year, they quietly thank the storms that shaped them. They don't need crowds because they've already met their truest companion, themselves. This isn't loneliness, it's spiritual strength. They understand that peace isn't loud, and self-acceptance doesn't need decorations. Their life is their celebration now. Every breath a silent candle. The real gift? Becoming someone they once needed. When someone treats their birthday like a normal day, don't mistake it for emptiness. It's often wisdom in disguise, the kind that comes from surviving, reflecting, and evolving. These people have learned that the quietest days can hold the loudest meaning. They don't wait for others to define their worth anymore. Their celebration is internal, a silent nod to themselves saying, "You made it." And that's the highest form of self-love. Peace that doesn't need an audience. Because sometimes, treating your birthday like a normal day means you finally found what you were looking for. Yourself.